So we now kick into the next session, and I'd like to introduce Tony Birr from Goodchild Marine Services, who's talking about pilot boats, a hybrid option. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. I'll take it we just move this on in it. Yeah.
Just give them a second to set it.
There we go. Right, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me at the back? Yeah. Show of hands. Yeah, brilliant, thank you. I'm not used to standing behind a lectern. I'm normally in there and in your face, so you're actually, you're okay today. Today is a really snapshot, quick headlines about what we've got to offer. There will be a quick question and answer session at the end when I've got some experts, shall we say, in the room, but at the end of the day we would encourage anybody that wants to know some finite details to come and talk to us on our stand afterwards. So basically, why are we here? Well, there is a pressure on emissions. I know you've had lectures on that earlier today, so I'm not going to dwell too much, but there are greenhouse gases coming from our transport system, and about a quarter in the UK come from transport. So we're about reducing greenhouse gases. That's what it's all about. I'm going to stand a little bit round here. So emissions reduced by 80% compared to 1990 levels at 2050. Makes sense. The regulations of air quality governed by the number of legal instruments and policies of local, national and international governments. Many of you, I'm sure, will know that the IMO met in London only a few weeks ago and was starting to bring out new emission controls. So, the Port of London, the first port in the UK that's issued a clean air strategy. You can read it, you don't need me to read from the slide. 5-year plan, starting this year, concludes 2022. And for those that want to know, there's the link to the website, and I think you get this presentation anyway. Right. Why are we going to hybrid? The first thing that we need to do is look at the accurate duty cycle of a vessel. How far? The range. How far is it going to go? What speed? What's the cruising speed? I just had a company come on board and they said they want to do 30 knots. Well, it's achievable, but there are compromises. And I've said to them, is that an essential speed or a desirable speed? They couldn't answer the question. Idling speed, a lot of time boats are sat there on takeover, wind farm boats, etc. But even with pilot boats, there are times they're sat there doing nothing. So we want to know about that. Time alongside, absolutely critical. Because while you're alongside, plugging into the grid, charging up, rapid charging. Have we got enough time to do that? Which sort of links in the time between journeys. Are they spending overnight or is it 20 minutes, whatever? And then we come back to this word, what is desirable, what is essential? We need to know that. Everything in the eyes of the operator is essential. Is it? Crew characteristics. I don't know how many of in the room actually manage boats and manage crews, etc. I was a police officer running police boats in these waters. I can tell you I had 12 staff driving their boats in 12 different ways. That's reality, isn't it, Dom? We need to know what the crews are up to and how they drive them. So, where do we get to? The basis is we started off with an efficient hull. We are not trying to push a brick through water. I needed something that needed less energy, less stored energy to push through the water. So in 2012, HY Services Limited had the first ORC pilot boat in the UK. They rapidly found out that per boat, they were saving £100,000 per year on fuel. That to me equates that they're burning less, which means they're needing less stored energy. But it wasn't just ESL, it was the boat was going faster, and Liverpool have also got 3 of these boats are reporting savings of around 40% in fuel costs. So we know we've got an efficient hull, so therefore we need less energy. We also want a boat that's proven in the pilot boat world. There are pilots in this room, and I know some of them. they do a dangerous job. This boat has to work in their environment, otherwise it ain't going anywhere. So we've got 60 of these pilot boats in operation from Australia into Northern Europe. But 49 are also used of this hull form as rescue boats, Coast Guard boats, etc. And then we've got 37 fishing boats, ribs, etc. And passenger boats using this hull form, the ORC hull form. And there is 29 currently in build. In fact, there's 28 because we've just delivered one at the show here today. Well, yesterday. That's the pictures. Oh, sorry. Press the button one. You'll notice that most of the time the wheelhouse is at the back, but at the bottom right hand we can move it forward. It's the hull form that's important, and then the bottom left, that was launched a couple of weeks ago in Australia for the Royal Victoria Police. So just give you an idea of the different uses of this hull form, but we're using it for the pilot boat. So we're using parallel, and the reason for this is the industry, the pilot boat industry, still want diesel engines. That's what they're confident with. To use John Haynes' phrase, on a dark, stormy night, and he said, I'm sure some of you heard it, crews still want diesel engines, so we have to deliver it to them. But in this system, you can have diesel, you can have electric, or you can have both. And that brings in redundancy, and we're in a boost mode. So the more the diesel, what we're trying to do with the parallel system is actually match the RPM of the diesel engine and the RPM of the electric motor. That's the key thing. And it reduces the number of engines that are available considerably, especially when we're talking about tier 3 engines. So if we're going to use them in boost speed, the two have got to be in sync with each other as near as possible. And what we've done is we've reduced the engine size to reduce the weight, reduce the fuel, again to reduce the weight, to carry the extra batteries. We're still adding around about 2 tons to the weight of the vessel, which as a result is reducing the speed. So in very, very simple terms, is there a pointer on this? Engine, clutch, ignore that bit, marine gearbox, propeller. Straightforward, we're all familiar with. All we've added in is a splitter connected to an electric motor and then to the back. Does that make sense? It's very, very simple. But the reason we've gone down this line is because of what the industry wants, what the pilots want. It's part of a stepping stone, and I'm sure we will end up eventually at totally electric. That's what the engine looks like with the motors put on the side. And Hugo and Gianluigi are here to take some questions later, and I'm sure they can talk about the finer details in more. Right, energy storage. Everybody's heard about these lithium-ion batteries, thermal runaway, etc., etc. Right, it needs to be efficient. The storage, the management of it, and I know John here, with the management process of this power needs to be very, very carefully thought out, which is why we've gone to Transfluid and MIT to do that. The technology is changing by the week, and we need to keep abreast of it. And what we're going to deliver this in the next few months, I'm sure in 2 years' time will be not out of date, but things will have progressed. But we also need to deliver at a reasonable cost. People talk about the business case. This adds circa £250,000 to the cost of the boat. So we need to keep the cost down, otherwise people won't buy it. So charging, when people talk about charging, rapid charge, 50% of the charge in about 30 minutes. There's no memory effect like with some batteries, and they can take more than 3,000 cycles. And the important thing for us, this is DMV approved with the casing. A cycle in this case is if it was discharged by 50%, recharged, discharged by another 50%, and recharged, that counts as one cycle. Does that make sense to everybody? Right, how to operate it. I had the pleasure of a couple of weeks ago going out to Italy and using this system. It is as simple, select diesel, select electric, or select both. It's as simple as that. It doesn't matter what position the throttle is in, you can jump from either together. But you as the helm have total control of it. So it's not like a hybrid car that keeps kicking in and doing its own thing. And the coxswain is in charge of the boat, which I think is an important thing. And I can see Don and so forth nodding. So there we go. So there's a recharge and a boost button. You can see from the blue line, well, there's the light blue line and the red line. When you hit the boost one, we get the dotted dot line together. So running the electric and the diesel together in a boost situation gives us a lot more power and therefore a lot more speed. But also, it's regenerating the batteries. If we just go on electric, the faster you go, the quicker you run out of battery power. So, has anybody been on the pontoon and seen the ORC on the pontoon? Been on a few people, right? That boat that's out there on the pontoon is the boat that's going to be hybridised, or that, not that particular boat, but that model. So it's to get with the ORC 136. General layout, it will, that showed bench seats, but it will take up to 7 passengers, including the helm. And you'll see from this general engine, still the conventional diesel engine, shaft driven, and the batteries are going where the current fuel tanks are. And then from the sort of aerial view. Right, procurement. Why have I put a picture of some police boats up there? 2012, I bought those 4 boats for the Hampshire Police here in the UK. From January the 11th to December the 24th, January 11th I had the money, September the 24th, all those 4 boats were in service. And the way we did it was very, very simply. We did the research and we decided what we want. Too many procurement processes are based around, I'll issue a statement and see what comes in. I do recommend people actually go and do the homework and sit down and talk with this. And please don't tell the boat builders or the things how to do it, for those that are involved in procurement. I really see this as a dynamic decision making, and with the PLA, we have approached the whole project as a partnership. The customer is as much a part of it as the builder, the naval architect, etc. And it's the only way it can work. So, numbers. 40%. What was 40%? Anybody remember 40%? What I said? That's the amount of fuel we'll be saving out of the hull to start the process off, an efficient hull. £100,000. For the estuary services, the boat that's out there, that's what they're saving with this hull. £100,000 per year in conventional diesel form. They expect to reduce their usage of the diesel engines by 90%. Their estimates on their duty cycle. 90% less using the diesel engine. That means obviously reduced emissions, but also reduced maintenance costs. Because we all know big diesel engines don't like ticking over at slow speeds. They're still going to have to do annual servicing, but we're going to reduce those costs considerably. 150, that's the number of diesel boats that are in today. 15 knots, that's the speed we're going to get out of this boat under electric power. For years and years and years, I've been saying, certainly the last 3 or 4 years, people have been talking about 6, 7, 8 knots. This is a big claim. think some of you are. Don, I can see you nodding. This is a big claim, 15 knots under electric, and a range of 40 nautical miles at 15 knots. We believe this is a game changer for the pilot boat industry anyway. When operating in electric mode, that's the number of emissions. Emissions are zero. Putting aside the emissions in relation to charging ashore. This is whilst at sea. And again, coming at 90%, that's what the PLA claim, that they're going to reduce the number of the hours the engine's going to be used. I've just had the 5-minute button come up, so I'm sure you've got questions, but before we do, I know I've spoken about hybrid pilot boats. I think the hybrid system, I know many in the room will probably agree, is even better suited to survey vessels because of the speed that they're operating and duration. Patrol vessels, I'm talking to ports that predominantly use their boats as general patrol, general security, and only occasionally go out at fast speed. Hybrid is very much for them. Dive support, and then the classic is ferry services that are on a routine route where they can come alongside, charge up. Is anybody here involved in the Woolwich ferry? I heard somebody talking about today that they actually spend more time alongside Woolwich ferry. Somebody said in the show today that the ferry spends more time alongside than it actually does transiting the River Thames. Therefore, it's got more time to charge up its batteries. So ferry services are really crying out. I know the Scandinavians are well advanced with that. The challenge is going to be this pilot boat. So, before I invite my colleagues on it, I'm Tony Birr, Goodchild Marine. Come and speak to us in more detail. John Logue is the MD from MIT. They're the UK company that are supplying the hybrid system to us. And we've got Yanuriti and Ugo from Transfluid, who are the company that are making it. So as I say, this is a partnership approach. So, I think we've got about 5 or 6 minutes for questions. That's a very, very rapid trip through. The boat is in production, the hull's down, the engine beds are in, the deck split is under construction, the wheelhouse is under construction, the hybrid system's under construction. This time next year, this boat will be out there in service. It isn't a pie in the sky, it isn't a concept, it isn't a project, it's a real life, and it will happen.
Any questions for Tony and his team of experts he's got lined up here?
Johnny.
Maybe hold on.
Thanks. It's very interesting. You mentioned it adds about 250k to the cost of the boat to put the parallel hybrid in. Would you estimate the payback then? Is it inside a year or?
I think it really depends the duty cycle is the answer. I know it sounds like a bit of a politician's answer, but it depends on how much they're using the boat and how much they were using compared to their fuel they're going to save. And also, because of the reduced engine hours, the increased time between servicing, an engine could actually last the life of the vessel. But yes, they anticipate, the PLA have said to me, inside 5 years they'll get payback. We've got people that are buying new boats without the hybrid for 5 years because it's saving them that much money.
And what is the expected life of the vessel?
Well, most of our vessels with 25 years plus. I think I'm sure the gentleman here will say more than this. Lithium ion in this world is new. It's new in the car industry. There are claims in 20 years' time we'll know how long the battery's lasted. We've got predictions that's been through tests in the labs and the various companies will claim, but 20 years we'll know how long the batteries have lasted. What we have done with this is we've built in racks so that the individual battery packs can be manhandled out and we're pulling hatches to make sure it's as easy as possible for any service engineers to replace a battery pack should they need to. We hope they won't. But I'm talking about the life of the vessel, 25 years. I've got pilot boats out there, 40 years old, still running, built by Goodchild Marine. In service, in Brent Yarmouth and other stuff, so, it's our build quality, that's why we do it. Any more?
Just a technical question, what's the peak power and what's the electric propulsion power?
Power.
Yeah.
They have two engines, two diesel engines, 212 kilowatt rated at 3,300 RPM. So totally 424 kilowatt on board diesel and totally 300 kilowatt electric power. And at 3,000 RPM. So practically we can use 300 kilowatt with the propeller designed for the diesel engine because we get up to 3,000 RPM and then the diesel is 3,300, a little bit higher power, and so we can use all the 300 kilowatt. This is why they have estimated the 15 knots, I hope with some tolerance.
Yeah, that is a conservative figure according to our naval architect. It's conservative. We estimate around about 22 knots with boost, and again, we estimated 25 knots for that boat out there. We did 30 coming back, delivering it to the show. So, but I'm not going to stand up here and make outrageous claims, but we're confident we'll reach these what we have claimed.
Okay, but just to clarify, so 2 engines, 2 electric motors, 300 kilowatts per side.
4 electric motors.
4 electric motors.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 on each shaft.
And 90% of the time all electric.
Yes. Well, for this particular application, in the Port of London on the River Thames, we move to a different port and a different place, it will be different, which I'll go back to my first slide. Looking at the duty cycle, or the predicted duty cycle, is the starting point, is the critical thing, because every boat is going to be different. And it has to be, which goes back to my last slide of procurement. Don't just write down what you want and sling it out. You've got to sit down with the hybrid manufacturers, with the boat builders, and work out exactly what people want.
I would add a thought. With a twin screw vessel, with 1 diesel each prop shaft and 2 electric motors, you are at triple redundancy. Because our system works in case of failure of one of the 2 electric motors on the single prop shaft, you can use the other one. So really, it's very safe.
Maybe just a quick one to finish from my side. I assume you're charging batteries from shore as well?
Yes.
Is there any additional infrastructure and cost associated with that?
Very good question. The answer is yes. For those of you charging boats up in marinas, I think they run at about a kilowatt, maybe a kilowatt and a half. You're going to need 15 kilowatts minimum shore power, which is substantial. So it's not going to be a marina size.
It's a parallel hybrid plug-in, so you can recharge the battery by using the electric machines. When you go diesel, you can recharge the battery through the electric machine that works as a generator. And otherwise, from the shore, plug in.
But yes, you do need some
Actually, we provide 15 kilowatt, 15 kilowatt battery chargers on board.
Okay, are there any final questions? If not, we will thank the team up here. Thank you very much, gentlemen.